Ladies and gentlemen, you're not seeing things here. I'm no longer telling lies. Who's behind the door? Well, you're going to find out here. Trust me. And no, I'm not going to be taking my fingers from my hair because our guest is a man who is as accomplished as anybody who has ever come on this platform. I know it's a little different here for our guest. I know he does all these interviews with all these rock journalists and all these metal guys and everything else. But here on this platform, I'm actually from the wrestling world who's now transitioning a little bit into this man's world. So the introduction that I'm going to give you, sir, you're going to probably be like, wow, I guess that might be a La La song in itself. But we're going to have plenty of Arabian Nights here. We're going to certainly be talking about plenty of bears that are around us. And I can't wait for this one because this is a personal one. Obviously, when you think about being here from New York and you think about the band Zebra, a band that was so influential in the late 70s and the early 80s that worked their way up the old-fashioned way thanks to WBAB and getting signed to Atlantic Records and having the most successful, fastest-selling debut album of any band at that time in the history of Atlantic Records. It led them to a gold record. It led them to touring with the likes of Sammy Hagar, and they toured with Aerosmith, and they even gave little bands an opportunity like Queensryche, Dream Theater. It's a long list of other bands. Also played with Loverboy. Yeah, we're definitely not waiting for the weekend here, and their debut album is about to turn 42 years old. And on top of that, they're actually now the longest active American rock band that's with its original lineup. And they're getting ready for their 50th anniversary tour. What an accomplishment. One of the greatest rock trios of all time. Our guest here has got plenty to talk about. He's got a show here tonight. He's going to talk about a new album here. Finally, we're going to get a new album here, and it's going to be their first one in a long time, over 2 decades. They're going to be reunited with one of the greatest producers of all time, the man that was behind those influential first 2 albums, the legendary Jack Douglas. We're going to talk about that here. We're also going to talk about here, Just Tell Me What You Want. And we're going to talk about plenty of that. We're going to talk about that first album. We're going to talk about what's next and the process behind that new album and just how the tour is going, and just an amazing testament to this band's longevity and the original lineup still intact. But, since we do things different here, sir, and I know, like I said, you're probably saying, why am I here on this platform? These guys talk wrestling. Well, I'm going to give you an introduction here because we're in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the platform where, let's just say, you're about to build. And on top of that, I'm going to give your band something because I see you guys do interview after interview, and you're so generous, sir, with your time. I'm going to give you something that'll be a surprise. And let's just say the clue will be you're already in one state's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and let's just say one suburban area's Hall of Fame, and you're about to join another one. But we'll get to that later on. But, as I stated, it is time now to give you that intro because I know a lot of people in my chat, a lot of my fans, a lot of my supporters, and even my mom is actually a big fan of you. And she saw you back in that first album, and she's a singer in her own right, and she now wants to hear from you. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this show on the road here in style on Sportzwire Radio, the #1 global radio station. So, with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, #1 global sports show. A man that is the lead singer and guitarist from the longest active American rock band with an original lineup, whose debut album was the fastest selling album at the time in Atlantic Records history. His name is, simply put, Randy Jackson. My friend, how are we doing?
I'm doing okay. How about you? You sound like you're right there in the ring.
You know what? So I've had two WWE wrestlers in the last 2 months, which is probably the reason why I'm actually talking to you. And shout out to your management there, especially Dave Rothstein, because he was like, "Wow, okay, you've interviewed Rhino and Savio Vega, and then Doug Pinnick of King's X, which I'll get to that later on." So he was like, "Well, you know what? I think you actually have something." And my intro's unique, but it's led me to some popularity in the wrestling world, and it seems like it's catching on here in the rock world. And it's an absolute honor to meet you. And I do this every night. You know, I know you perform and sometimes you do back-to-back shows, and you still, it's an amazing accomplishment for what you and Guy and Felix have done. But I do this every night. People ask me all the time. And Doug Pinnick asked me this, Rhino, Savio Vega, WWE legends. They ask me, well, you know, boy, that voice, and they seem to like it. And I just say, I just do it every night. Like, you go out there and play the double neck guitar and sing for 2-3 hours and then do this. I don't know. But it's an absolute honor to have you here. And obviously, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity and taking time out of your day, especially on the day of a show. But I do want to ask you, for those that are listening and watching here in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the platform that you, Zebra, most certainly have helped to build here, Sportzwire Radio, by coming here, 50 years. That is an incredible accomplishment and a testament to the band's longevity. And let's talk about the 50-year anniversary tour that's coming up here, and talk about what we can expect, and how excited are you guys to go back out here and tour for what's ahead?
You know, we've been playing better than ever since we've been doing so many shows, and so we are ready. We're ready to go out, and it's pretty amazing that it's been 50 years. It certainly doesn't feel like it, but I guess anybody that gets up there to our age, you know, is going to be saying it doesn't feel like it. You know, it only looks like it, but hopefully we'll make it look like we're still 20. And we're sounding like it. Guy is playing amazingly.
Oh my God. I was watching some of the stuff on Facebook and YouTube with you guys recently, and it's like you guys are playing, I would dare say, better in the heyday of the band when you were playing with all the likes of Sammy Hagar and Aerosmith and Loverboy and Twisted Sister. I mean, it's an amazing testament. How have you guys been able to stay in shape musically to be able to play the kind of sets that you do at this time in your career?
Well, we never stopped playing. You know, a lot of we kind of got off the radar for a lot of people, but we've never stopped. We always did shows, you know, in the on the East Coast or down south, and now we've gone back out west and spread out to some places we hadn't been in 30 or 40 years, and so it's been good. And we're kind of getting our sea legs back, you know, from traveling. You know, it had been a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you're playing places that you haven't played in a while. And I've noticed in the last couple of years, as I've been following the band, especially in that you guys have been playing more, I think, dates wise than you've played in a really long time. And I asked Doug Pinnick this question when I had him on a couple of weeks ago with King's X, and it kind of seems like the same situation, but it's almost like the band's kind of had a little bit of a mini resurgence these last few years because you're playing more than I've seen you guys play in a long time. I mean, what's that got to be like, playing more and playing to places you haven't played maybe since those first couple albums?
Well, it's great. It's you know, I think a lot of it is due to you know, our agent. You know, you were just
Yep.
describing Dave
Yeah.
Rothstein. You know, he's been booking us and getting people to like find the Zebra fans. That was the hardest thing.
Yeah, I just saw you guys last month. You played on, it was a festival, and I think in New Orleans, and it, like, In Vogue was on the ticket. I'm like, Zebra and In Vogue. I was like, wow, okay, well, that's interesting. That's definitely different. I mean, that's kind of unique in a sense.
Well, that was like accidental because originally it was supposed to be Kansas that was playing, and they had to cancel at the last minute.
Yes, I did see the report there. I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, their singer had some thyroid issues, and he
Yeah, I
couldn't
saw that.
make the show. So, so they just grabbed In Vogue, and you know, In Vogue was great though. You know, I didn't.
You know, it's funny, like In Vogue and Zebra, but yet the singers there, you mean you get up there like them. I mean, I'm definitely not going to ask you to sing. You're never going to get it, but we'll definitely not ask you to sing some of their hits. But that's kind of cool in a sense as a musician that you get to maybe be on some of these, you know, festivals or bills with different acts rather than The standard course. Yes, I know Blue Oyster Cult not too long ago. You guys were on a bill, a gig there with that, the usuals, but to maybe play with different musicians. Do you get a chance to mingle with some of these different bands you're on and these kind of hot potch in a pod shows they put together and such?
Occasionally you do, but everybody's pretty busy. Everybody's focused on what they're doing. And if you don't already know somebody by now, it's going to be, for me, I kind of, I don't go out of my way to try to meet some. I know how busy they are,
Sure,
so I have
sure.
a little empathy for everybody. And, but if somebody comes to me, I'll be glad to talk to them. So it's, I didn't get to meet any of the In Vogue people, but I watched them. They were great. So
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that they, and obviously, unfortunately, one of their singers was in the news for, not the greatest reasons, but I'm sure it'll work out itself out. But I was curious on this because again, I get a lot of, major wrestlers that come on here, people that are, kind of like you, that have been in the rock world, have been extremely successful, and what's the preparation like for, let's say, what you do, especially your voice? You don't just go out there, say a few words. You go out there and you still get up there. That falsetto. I mean, I heard Geddy Lee talk about this before Rush finished their last tour. And he talked about just there were certain songs he couldn't sing, and it was a different range that he had. And for you vocally, I mean, for what you do, what's the preparation like?
I have to warm up, and you know, I do it, every show. So I spend about a half hour warming up before the show, um, and that is what keeps it going. I mean, if I wasn't doing that, I don't know if I could be doing a show every night. The Zebra show anyway.
Yeah, for sure, for
And
sure.
knock on wood.
Uh, well, I hope you come back and there you go. I hear you. Go ahead. You were saying.
And the more you sing, the better off you are. So if you lay off too long, you got to get back into it and sing consistently. So I try to keep singing, every day, and keep my voice in shape. It's a muscle, and you've got to keep it in shape.
Yeah.
So laying off doesn't help it any, and you just.
No, it's like an athlete. Listen, an athlete goes out there, even a wrestler. We get all these wrestlers. We had like 17 of them that came on the other night, and it's the same thing. I was curious also because again, you're a man that has done so much in the music world. 50 years going, Zebra celebrating their 50th anniversary. I'll put the poster up here in a minute for that. We'll put some social media plugs so people can get a chance to see what you guys are up to and maybe go and buy a ticket. There's some meet and greets, VIP packages, Ticketmaster.com. We'll put the links up here for this in a second. But I was curious because I get a lot of also young, up and coming people that come on, and they're mostly wrestlers, and they're working their way up the ladder. And I never hear you get this question asked. I know you do so many interviews, and I never hear anybody ask you this question. But what advice would you have for somebody that's up and coming and whatever they're going to do, whether it's music, whether it's like here on Sportswire with wrestling, and what advice would you give for somebody to do or achieve the things that you've achieved?
Well, I I would tell them, first of all, just make sure you love it. That you're not doing it because you think you're going to make a lot of money. Um, you don't want to, whatever you do in life, you don't want to end up, going, why did I do this? I could have been doing that. Make sure it's your passion, and and be prepared to, not do as great as you think you might do, and stick with the people that you start with. I mean, one thing that I think has helped Zebra all this time is that fans like to see the original lineup. And a lot of bands don't have it because members have passed away and stuff. But when bands break up, it's people don't, the fans don't like it that much, no matter what they say. And it was a good thing for us, especially just being three piece. Everybody knew us as individuals, and thank God we got along all this time. And you know, that's my advice: find some musicians you get along with and stick to it.
Yeah, I think Doug had some of the same kind of advice because obviously King's X is a trio, and I think about Rush, even though it technically wasn't an original lineup, but Getty and Alex used to always talk about that everything was we're all on the same page, everybody comes to the table, and there's that democracy, which not every band has, and different bands go through different things. That I did want to ask you this because I saw it in the news, unfortunately, and I know this kind of impacted the band a bit. And I saw Eddie Trunk mention it the other day, and that Marty Callner had passed away, and he was important because he directed 2 of your videos, which was Bears and Wait Until Summer's Gone. And I was just wondering for the audience, and especially fans of the band, what were your memories of Marty Callner, who unfortunately passed away earlier this week?
Marty was just funny. He shot from the hip. Uh, Nothing could rattle him. I remember when we were doing Bears. He had hired a girl to get costumes for the thing, and she was foreign. I think she was like Swedish or something. And her English was not the greatest. I don't know if that had anything to do with what happened, but he wanted to get bear costumes, and she brought something a costume that looked like Dancing Bear from if you're familiar with Captain Kangaroo, and
Yeah, I am.
he went he went nuts, and sent her back out to get a real looking bear costume, and we had to change the whole script because he wanted a lot of these costumes, but there weren't any available or whatever the reason was.
Right.
And so we just changed the whole shooting schedule for that day, and he didn't have a problem with it. We just sat down and said, "Okay, we're going to do this now." We took the props we had and went for it, and it ended up being pretty funny, but not what we originally had intended.
Well, that's the world of music videos, and especially in that era. And he was so influential in so many videos. Think about the Whitesnake videos, Aerosmith. I remember the Aerosmith videos, and just a true icon. And certainly, I want to give my thoughts and prayers to him. We're here with the legendary Randy Jackson, of course, who's got a gig here tonight. I'll promote that in a bit. We also have Zebra, the legendary Zebra, who's getting ready for their 50th anniversary tour. A few dates just recently took place, and they're going to have a bunch here lined up. I'm going to put the poster up here shortly for it in a minute. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally where all wrestling matters and where all Zebra matters here. And I'm going to put the poster up here now because I want to talk about it for the audience. I know there's a bunch of stuff here locally here in New York on Long Island. We have the Westbury Music Fair. I want to definitely talk about that. I want to talk about a bunch of these gigs here, and I have them here coming up. And you're next out there on April the 25th in Austin City Limits, House of Blues, back-to-back, 26th and 27th of April. Then you're at the Westbury Music Fair, a place I know very well, Cataratic, PAC, on the 27th of June. And Beacon and Hopewell, I saw a lot of people talking about that on Facebook. City Winery, back-to-back, the 9th and 10th. And you're actually in Boston on the 11th. So, I mean, exciting. A lot of dates here coming up, and back-to-back shows, and just very exciting. I mean, what's that like playing in cities back-to-back? I mean, especially with set lists. I asked Doug this question at King's X, and the band there just completed a set here coming up, and they're playing this weekend back-to-back, and they're at the Whiskey. I know you've been at the Whiskey before and played there, but just in playing back-to-back shows, what's that like for the set list? Do you change the set list up? Do you put a few nuggets in? Do you keep covers in, take something out? What's that like when you play back-to-back shows in these same places?
We definitely change the set list. We don't do the same set on nights that we play the same venue. And we have enough songs to do that, but we always are going to do Tell Me What You Want, Who's Behind the Door.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
We can't leave those out, but we've got a lot of songs that people love, and so it's not a hard thing to do, doing two separate nights. But actually, on this run that you're talking about here,
yeah,
those aren't back-to-back shows. Those are actually in different cities, and they just happen to be the same venues in different cities. If you look at it, so there's not a back-to-back I don't think on this run. We got
yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, it's technically, yeah. I mean, it's back-to-back nights in a yeah. I mean, kind of
cities, yeah. So it'll probably be a very similar show in all those cities, but we do change it up a little bit every night between shows. We don't do the same set, although I think sometimes Guy would like us to do the same set, but
Well, as the drummer, it's just amazing, as a drummer, what he does out there, and just all that what he's went through, and to be able to play as well as he has, it's just a tremendous accomplishment to what you and Felix and Guy have done. And I did want to talk it, like I'm probably one of the people that would like to hear you play like Arabian Nights and Free and some of your most recent album. I mean, do you ever want to like take songs out or play songs that maybe the fans don't recognize? Because that's always a challenge, especially with bands like you guys that have a heritage. Some bands, for example, like Iron Maiden and their most recent tours, they had a new album. They wanted to play the entire album or play almost 9 songs. I heard Dave Mustaine of Megadeth talk about, well, I'm going to try to play like 3 songs, 4 songs. Then there's guys that you've toured with, like Sammy Hagar, and you're pretty much getting like the same set list almost every place you're going to, because there's people that know the hits. But like for you, maybe even for Felix and Guy, do you want to play stuff from stuff that maybe people don't know from the first 2 albums, just as musicians, stuff that you like? I just was curious about this, maybe for the audience and those that are going to come out and see you here, especially for next month and so on.
we don't really. Besides the songs that got heavily airplay, got a lot of airplay. People, real Zebra fans know all the Zebra songs. We're not
Yeah.
that we're never at that level where I know that band, they played this and this.
Yeah.
So anything outside of the big songs that we did, uh, I don't think there's going to be that much of a trouble with people listening to them. They're not expecting anything, and a lot of them are hardcore. They know all the albums, they know all the songs on the album. So we don't have, you know, uh, any songs I think that are just so obscure. Oh, why did they do
Yeah, I
that?
know you guys did a few years ago. You toured the first album. You did it from top to bottom in order. I thought that was so interesting, because a lot of bands wouldn't do that. Even bands that may just have a hardcore base, but to do that, so the fans are going there and they're gonna be there no matter what. I think that's kind of cool in a sense that you don't have to worry about, well, I've got 15 albums and I might want to play my most recent one, but I gotta figure out how to keep the set list in order in different ways. So that kind of at least makes your job a lot easier.
Well, just having 4 studio albums makes it a lot easier. I got to tell you, if that had, that would be.
Well, yeah, that's you can definitely do. It makes it life a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're pretty confident that most people know all of the songs. So there's not 15 albums that they had to go through, uh, or that we even have to go through. So
Well, we're going to mention an album that might finally be coming out. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, if you're here right now on Instagram, do me a favor on Instagram. Go to Zebra Rock Band. Check out the band's dates, all that. You can also go to thedoor.com. I'll put that link up here. But this is where you can actually see the poster for dates. You can get some information on the band. And again, that's all going to be at zebraband.com for the VIP meet and greet. You can get some upgrades there. Ticketmaster also. There's going to be more dates to be announced. But already right now, the guys just played at Rock and Bowl, Bulber Auditorium last week. They're going to be back in Austin, Texas on the 25th, Houston the 26th, Dallas the 27th, House of Blues back-to-back, Westbury Music Fair on the 17th of May, and a bunch of dates, and I'm sure more will be announced here. And let's talk about, speaking of albums, a new album finally. I mean, a new album. I mean, you guys certainly, got an interesting way of doing things. The last album you had was out in 2003. Before that, which was Zebra 3, was 1986, and now we're in 2025. But you've reunited with the producer that was at the helm for those legendary first 2 albums, the first one going gold and the fastest debut selling album in Atlantic Records history. That is the man, the myth himself, Mr. Jack Douglas. And so we're going to finally get new music here, and let's talk about the prospect of that.
well, it's been really, really interesting. I've kept in touch with Jack, ever since we first worked.
Uh, we're waiting for Mr. Jackson to come back on here, and he'll talk about that again, I'm sure.
With him
If
on the first
Yeah, no.
couple of.
Yeah, I lost you there for a minute. I lost you there for a minute. So you were saying about Jack Douglas and working with him on this record here upcoming.
Yeah, it's been great. It's a whole different world now. I mean, it's been 40 years, so technology has changed, but both Jack and I have kept up with what's going on, and we've been doing a lot of it just online, back and forth, with these. With a lot of the sessions, and then he has come to my studio several times. I think he's coming again next week, where
Okay.
we're one on one. But we get a lot done online, which makes it easy. He lives he's in upstate, and if he happens to be in Los Angeles, we can do it online that way too, and it works out great. There's a program we use where he could pretty much hear all the tracks and look at the soundboard and mix if he wanted to. But at this point, I'm doing the engineering, and he's just kind of sprinkling it up, and you know.
I was listening to an interview with was Jizzy Pearl, who sang in Rat, and he sings in Quiet Riot. He said he was recording his most recent songs on his phone through FaceTime. It's so amazing how things have changed. You think about the old days of the record plant here in New York City, and the labels would spend hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not like that. People have Pro Tools, and they sit there, and I think it was it Dream Theater. It was one of the bands that was during COVID that they worked on the album through Zoom. It's just amazing how, technology has changed, and maybe that's made it easier where you guys can go and work on an album with Jack, and especially Jack, who was the man at the helm of those first two albums. And, I'm curious on this in terms of the songwriting process. I know the first album, it was 8 years long overdue. You guys were touring out there and you were getting to that moment. It was the second album, maybe you had some ideas left over, but in 2025, how does Randy Jackson, Guy Gelso, and Felix Hanneman work on an album and to this day and age? And what's the songwriting process and what's influencing you guys versus those first few albums you put out there? What's that like today versus then?
Well, it's the same process, except we don't have the luxury of, or we haven't made it so that we played the songs for any amount of time. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be heard by people the first time when we release them, but we have a pretty good idea at this point what our fans liked and what worked. And there's a lot of material. There's also material that we never did record that people are familiar with because we did play it live years and years ago that we've been asked for time and time again. So that'll be added on the record. And, we just keep adding songs to the record all the time. And so the way we're going to kind of do it, I think, is release a few tracks in May. And then just every month there'll be more tracks released, and who knows how many we'll end up with, we may just keep going with it, and it'll just be a constant release.
Well, I mean, listen, that's the name of the game at this point. Motley Crue put out a new song last year, and not everybody puts out albums like the way they used to be. The music industry has changed. It's not people go out and buy your debut album. They don't go out there and listen to it song from song, or buy the LP. And people might that might catch on in a different way. And it's 42 years coming up next week, March 25th, 1983. The debut album was released. And what are your memories of that record, making it, and just the success that followed afterwards?
I just remember selling so many records those first 2 weeks. And then after that, it was like nothing for a while, a couple of months, until a radio station in St. Louis started playing the record, a radio station named Keishi. And all of a sudden they sold, I think, 7 records in St. Louis, and Atlantic was excited about that because even though we had sold 75,000 in the first 2 weeks, those were in our home bases, and they weren't impressed with that. But here was a place that we'd never played, nobody knew us, and we were selling strictly on the airplay, and so that for them is impressive. If they can get records sold by getting airplay. That's where they'll put the money in, and they were seeing that even with just 7 records. I guess there's a lot of acts that they get airplay for that never sell a record, from the airplay. Maybe they sell them when they see them live, but if they can get it on the air, then you can sell a lot of them at once. And then Atlantic started really pushing it. We got airplay all over the country and started selling a lot more records.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, the fastest selling debut album in Atlantic Records history for any band. That's an amazing accomplishment. Think about Atlantic, right? Led Zeppelin and just all those heritage acts that were on that label at that time. That's just an amazing accomplishment for the band and such to be still to this day, right? That's an amazing accomplishment.
Well, none of us had been on a record previously, so we were all virgins, and that's how they qualified it. I don't know how many records Zeppelin sold when it first came out, but Jimmy Page had been on
The
records,
Yardbirds, yeah, it was in the Yardbirds.
the Yardbirds, so I wouldn't put them in the category. But there's a lot of bands that came out, but they didn't have a following when they first come out. So those first couple of weeks, you're waiting. Maybe a band like Bad Company had some people, but there's a lot of bands that when they come out the first week or two, it's a wait and see. Is the stuff going to be on the radio? With us though, we had so many fans from playing locally for 8 years that they were
That's
waiting.
kind of like the wrestling world. Wrestlers go out there for years until they get that moment, and WWE signs them. Rhino and Savio Vega were those examples. They came here, and it took them wasn't overnight. It took them a long time, and that's what you guys did. And Long Island. I'm from Brooklyn here, and I was thinking about you the other day because I passed by what used to be L'Amour's, which was on 15th Avenue and 63rd Street. I was actually in the neighborhood a few days ago on my way somewhere, and I thought about you in this interview, and but just, I mean, what were your memories of the Long Island rock scene that led you to what you eventually had with that record on March 25th, 1983? And what were your memories of the Long Island rock scene back in the late 70s, early 80s?
I mean, it was a party. There's no doubt about it. And we took advantage of that. We had some great, great times. And, people all over the country always coming up and saying, man, that was the best time of my life, And
I'm sure my mother would agree. She grew up, up the street from L'Amour's, and and had fun. I'm sure you had more fun because, well, you were Randy Jackson and such.
we had a lot of fun. More fun. I don't know. Some people seem to have endless fun and kept doing it. But
Yeah.
in the time period, things were a lot different back there. I mean, we weren't all worried about dying when you had sex, and the drugs weren't ODing you every 5 minutes. So it was a safer environment. Let's just say.
Well, I mean, Pete, you asked me how I keep my voice up. Well, I've, never done anything. I'm boring. I just do loud intros all day.
Well, that's a good thing, especially.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's kept me going. It's kept me out of trouble for now. But I got to talk about. You have a gig here tonight coming up. I have to promote it because I'm going to air this before this show you have coming up here, and I want to promote it for a minute. I need to do some stuff, acoustic stuff, and other things out here on Long Island, and I wanted to talk about it for a few minutes in the time that I had with you. And talk about what you're doing here. You have a show coming up here with Ava Rush, and you're here at the La Porta on 61 Main Street on Northport here. And what's going to happen here for the audience?
Well, I do, all the zebra stuff, and it's very intimate, so people can come up and ask me for, it's easier to get a request in.
Yeah, I saw one guy once. He literally jumped in your face while he was I don't know, he was slam dancing, and then you were playing the La La song, and reminded me we had a similar situation here with the wrestler, but in this case, the wrestler was going to beat up the fan. You were just in your glory, so it's just two different worlds there. But yeah, you definitely have some intimacy. I did watch some of your solo stuff on Facebook and YouTube to kind of get a sense.
Yeah, so I do. The stuff I grew up with, the music I love. So I do covers, and they're usually from the 70s, maybe early 80s. There's not much beyond that. But Pink Floyd, the Led Zeppelin, a lot of Beatles.
You do Rock Candy still? Montrose Rock Candy, that was big for you guys. You still do that?
Acoustic. I think I might have done it once or twice on the acoustic. It's just a request, but the band still plays it occasionally, We're every once in a while we'll do it if there's a lot of people asking for it. But those kind of covers, and I just keep playing. It's like song to song to song to song to song. So I just keep it flowing, and people will send up notes with the name of a song on it. people know the stuff that I do. So
Yeah, I don't know if you're getting that at a zebra show with Guy, Felix, and yourself. I don't think that's going to happen there with the zebra fans, but they pretty much, I don't think that's going to happen. It's kind of fun. That's kind of cool in a sense that's you get a chance to do that, and it'll take place here tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern time, and be there at the Laporta, 61 Main Street here on Northport. We're here with Mr. Randy Jackson for a little while longer. He is from the legendary band Zebra, whose debut album was the fastest selling album at the time in Atlantic Records history, and also the guys are getting ready for their 50th anniversary tour, an amazing accomplishment. I have something for the guys here in a few minutes. Also, the guys are also the longest American active rock band that has its original lineup. What an accomplishment. What an honor to have Mr. Jackson here. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally where all wrestling matters. And if you're here, like, share, and follow us here on Sportzwire Radio, and we'll have more coverage here of the likes of Randy Jackson and others here in the coming weeks. I didn't want to ask you about that because I have a question for you that'll follow up. You'll probably be like, oh, nobody's asked me that one before. But what does that mean to you now recently when you're now being introduced as Zebra being the longest active American rock band with its original lineup? What does that mean to you when you hear that now?
I'm proud of it. I mean, over the years, I've seen so many people, bands break up and or or worse, somebody die in the band, and we've been fortunate. But the fact that we've been able to stay together and not break up for any year, we played every single year of those 50 since we started. It's pretty amazing. So we've done something that other people couldn't do, and I'm proud of that. It just shows that we really are a family, and that our fans love our music. Because if it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't have done it for 50 years. But they
Yeah,
love.
I mean, what an amazing testament to the longevity of the band and the devotion of the fans that you have to be
Yeah,
able to go out there and still perform every year. That's through a lot of different trends. We talked about that you've got 4 albums in the vault, and that's only 4 albums in 50 years. So that means the fans, they want to see you no matter what. I mean, especially you had back-to-back albums, the first two, then you did the third one in 86. So 3 albums in essentially a 3+ year period. And then that's it, the one album, and coming up to this year where you're going to put some new music out there, and that's an amazing accomplishment to the fans. I've even heard you have some Z Bretts out there. I mean, I thought that was kind of funny. I heard that before from but that the fans have just they've willed you guys to keep going, and I think with this mini resurgence, is it part of Cobra Kai? I don't think it's all part of Cobra Kai. I mean, if you get asked about that, I think that the fans that you have been there, since from New Orleans, coming here to Long Island and in the surrounding areas here in New York City in '77. And, I think that's what propelled you guys to these last few years where, again, to me, it's a mini resurgence just playing these shows. And I think the fans, they know that the true music, you guys have never been a part of a trend. I think that's a part of it too. You've never been a part of a trend, never been a part of a fad. Sometimes never having the big hit, that's a blessing in a way because you guys keep going and Zebra hasn't changed. You didn't try to chase the trend. You didn't try to chase the fad. You stayed true to yourself. And I think that that's a message for anybody that watches you here.
yeah. I mean, I don't have any regrets about our career. People say, "Oh, you should have been bigger. You could have done this," but there's a lot of baggage that comes with that. With
Yeah.
being a lot more successful, and you don't hear about all of it, but sometimes you read about what some of these people have to go through that are really famous and can't go out without being recognized anywhere. And we've never had that issue. Plus, we're not that controversial. We haven't had any major crap that we've done or stuff. And,
Well, I think that it's give and take. I think that also you guys are true musicians. You've always been just true musicians in what you guys have done to your craft, and I think that a lot of musicians appreciate the band. And I think that speaking of that, and it got me thinking. You were coming here, and I had Doug Pinnick of King's X a few weeks ago, and I know your manager. Obviously, he talks to me, and he's obviously seen my stuff. And I don't know what this will ever take place, and I know there's more dates to be announced, but I would love to see, and I know a lot of fans have talked about this, and I'm a fan of you and obviously King's X. I think about King's X, which is kind of right behind you guys, the trio for 45 years, almost there, not quite there to 50. And they're obviously a trio. And I'm wondering, there has to be a way to put together a package. And I know King's ex-manager, Alexander Ford. I'm going to make sure he hears this. I know him very well. He's another guy that likes my stuff, and he thinks I'm eclectic. I got the intros, blah, 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 blah. So I know that my platform means something. And I want to ask you, what would your thoughts be on a package like that? I think that would be really cool to see the two longest active trios in rock currently, maybe in history. I mean, 50 years, King's X 45 years. They're playing the Whiskey coming up here this weekend. I mean, I know fans have talked about this. You guys have never toured, never played together. I mean, I don't know how that hasn't happened before. I think about Zebra and King's X, so many similarities. I mean, you do hold all the vocals now these days. Those guys still, they kind of still handle some of the responsibilities or share it. But what's your thoughts on something like that? It just, to me, the package sells itself. The two longest trios currently in rock and maybe in American rock history of period. What's your thoughts on a Zebra King's X package?
Well, I've always thought it would be a great thing. King's X is awesome, and we have a lot of Zebra fans that are big King X fans.
Yeah, I said the music to me is so. I got into King's X first, and I think the similarities are, you're both, by the way, both signed on Atlantic Records, played on Atlantic. Everybody says, well, King's X should have been bigger. Zebra should have been bigger. They had their big tour with AC/DC. You played with Sammy Hagar and Loverboy. I mean, I think the musicianship is almost to a T identical. I mean, you guys probably have more on the synthesizers than they do, but I mean, it's almost eye for an eye. I mean, to me, this writes itself. Alex, Dave, get on this. Let's go. I mean, to me, the guys aren't getting any younger, and they're working on new music. You guys are working on new music. They don't put out as much new music as they used to. I think, to me, this is a no-brainer. I think, to me, this is just a home run.
Sounds like a good idea to me. So make it happen.
I'm going to put this clip out. My last clip got like 13,000 views talking about King's X. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that it does happen. Because to me, I just think about what you guys have done, longevity. Right? You think about it now, the two longest current active rock with an original lineup. Think about it. You both had no lineup changes. You both are trios. Both signed to Atlantic. I mean, to me, like, I don't know. Can we keep going? I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer. I mean, to me, I was like, I got to ask you this question, but, I have to follow it up with something because, I promised to give you something. Everybody asks you to do an interview with them and they go, all right, yeah, blah, 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 blah. But I do things differently because we're on Sportswire Radio. No, I'm not going to put you in the ring. No. I actually have something for you because I really want to give this to you because, you do so much for the community. You do so much for music. And I thought, let's give back to Zebra. And congratulations, I'm putting you in my Hall of Fame. That's right, the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. Yeah, we have a WWE wrestler in it, a guy that played in the NCAA basketball men's Final Four. And I thought, you know what? We're about to have the 50th anniversary tour. We're about to have the 42nd anniversary of the debut album. And I thought, why not add another Hall of Fame for you guys? Because you guys should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I'm not going to get started on that. But I think, to me, this is a no-brainer that you guys should be in my Hall of Fame. I'll give you the physical copy when we're off the air. And congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. That's awesome, Thomas. Really?
Yeah. No, definitely. I thought, you know what? Let me do something different here. And we got a few more minutes here with the legendary Randy Jackson. He's got a show here coming up tonight in Northport, La Porta. Zebra's getting ready for some dates here on their 50-year anniversary tour. And that's going to also be at zebraband.com. Go to Zebra Rock Band on Instagram. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out on X. Check out Randy on X. I'm going to put Randy's link back up here. And please support the band. The band is also working with the legendary producer Jack Douglas, who was at the helm for the first two records. He also was, produced some guy named John Lennon and was involved with somebody named Yoko Ono and Aerosmith for their big albums. And he's back with the band. They're getting ready for some new music. Stay tuned for the band's social medias for more information. And we're here with the legendary Randy Jackson. Randy, I had to ask you about Sammy Hagar because Sammy Hagar, another guy, a contemporary of yours who's still out there, still performing. And I think your voice has a little bit more range than Mr. Hagar. But what were your memories touring with him, especially on the Voice of America tour? That was right before you guys were touring with him, right before, his world changed and no longer could he drive 55. It was a matter of, he had some dreams and joined with Eddie Van Halen and Michael Anthony and Alex Van Halen to have Van Halen's amazing run there with them. So what was your memories like with touring with Sammy Hagar back on the VOA tour right before he joined Van Halen? What was that like?
Sammy was a great guy. He treated us with respect. Um, I always tell this story about us being on the road, and uh, when we started off, everything was going smoothly, and his road crew was getting everything set up in order for us to have a sound check. And as time went on, they kept getting later and later and later until it was it was to the point where we weren't getting much of a sound check at all. And evidently, Sammy got wind of it and came and surprised them one day and chewed them out right on stage, and told them, listen, what do you think these guys are here for? I've got them here to warm up the crowd, to get the crowd going, and if they sound like crap because of you guys, I'm getting rid of you. He says, I don't need this. He was he, and so I would, he's a businessman, and he I'm sure he liked the band. It was great for us, but he knew what an opening act is supposed to be. It's not a competition. It's about, he's there. He's the headliner, and we're there to get the crowd going. That's what he wants.
Absolutely. That's like in wrestling. Listen, you're the opening match, and that's a big thing. The opening match is very important in the wrestling world because it gets everybody hyped up, and that's what you guys had an important role, especially on that tour where, I mean, that was where he was blowing up. I mean, he was really, I mean, he was big, but that tour, I Can't Drive 55, and, all that led it, the Voice of America, the self-titled song. I mean, that's where it led him to, being just an icon, a rock icon into it.
And it was his last tour before Van Halen.
Yep.
Nobody knew. Maybe he was in talks with them during the tour, but we were. I was shocked, but and happy for him to see that happened. He had been. I know that Ted Templeton had a lot to do with it because
who worked on the original Van Halen records. He worked on the first 6 albums. Ted Templeton.
So they were. They knew each other quite well, way before that, and
yeah,
it's great. Sammy's one of the greatest singers in rock and roll.
And Ted worked on the Montrose record, which you covered, Rock Candy. So there was, a lot of similarities there, and just an amazing opportunity for the band to be on that tour, and obviously again, leads him to the heights that he had. I never heard anybody ask you this question, but if you had one or two moments in your career, what would they be? They stand out most. You had one or two moments in your career.
I'm just trying to make sure I pick the right ones.
Because I asked like all the big wrestlers that come on, and I asked Doug this question, and Doug, he gave me, well, Woodstock, and he said AC/DC. So I always feel like people never ask people like yourself. They ask you the same questions, and I was like, I mean, for me, I would probably think getting a gold record would probably be big, right? Having the gold album, that's got to be a huge accomplishment. I think Jefferson Airplane, right? Being a part of Jefferson Airplane, that was a really big moment also in your career. Like, that was a cool opportunity to have at that time.
It was great. I had a great time. You know what? When I think back about excitement, may sound strange, but before we got our record deal, we had, we had some demos that had been played on, on WBAB, but they had played it during an hour called Homegrown, where it was just local bands, and they would play the local band's songs. And and Bob Buckman, the program director, had moved our songs into regular rotation at the station. So we weren't in there anymore. And I remember I was driving home from a gig, and all of a sudden I heard the song like at 4:00 in the morning,
Wow.
I had to pull off the road, because I was saying, wow, now this is real. They're playing the song in a real time slot on a real radio station, and that was a thrill, as minor as that may sound. That was a big deal to me, So
I would think that being on the radio at that time was a big deal. Like today, radio doesn't mean anything, but back then especially, radio is such a huge tool because we don't have phones like we had today. We don't have the internet. That was so like being on BAB, and especially being a heritage rock band, that led to you guys being signed. And Jason Flom, famously hearing your music in a limo and signing you guys. I mean, you guys, that's a pretty wild thing, right? That he wasn't going to sign you, and then he does. Hears it on WBAB, and you get the record deal.
Yeah. Well, that was Doug Morris, actually, the president. Jason was pushing him to get us signed, but Doug Morris was the one that was in the limo. But he was the president of Atlantic at the time. And but yeah, it was just a lot of coincidences that happened to get our record deals. But it all leads back to WBAB playing us,
Yeah.
on radio in regular rotation. So that one moment that when I was excited about it was the moment that really was going to lead to everything else along the way.
Oh, it definitely did, and the album goes gold, and you guys go out and become, a band that tours, and has these major moments. And I'm not going to certainly ask you about the Zebra trivia. I know you did that with JJ French and Twisted Sister, and ironically, you tour with Twisted. They get signed to Atlantic Records right afterwards, and and that leads and opens up a lot of doors for a lot of people, and that obviously gives you, what you have today. And, I know you're a busy man, and it's absolutely an honor to have you here. And I know a lot of my supporters are going to be excited about this. We've been promoting this for a few weeks on Sportswire, and even a few of the wrestlers are actually friends. I would love to see Zebra do like a song for like a wrestler or something like that. I mean, I'm sure Dave hears this is going to kill me for saying that, but we have a lot of like, I have a WWE wrestlers coming. So I'm going to see if maybe we can like, get like a Zebra like wrestling entrance music, because Motorhead did it. They were a trio, and it has to be something with it. I would love to see. I could see like you with that falsetto, doing something like more like tell me what you want or something like that. When wrestler plays, just something like Arabian Nights is like so perfect for wrestling. I don't know why I hear that like that driving crunch. We'll
Yeah,
have to see.
that would probably be a good thing to do. Yeah, well,
That would be.
we'll have to work on that.
Yeah, I'll talk to the manager, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see about that. But I know you're busy, man. You're getting ready for tonight. Is there anything else that you want to share or promote about the band coming up, and anything else that we should know as we're certainly getting ready here for what's ahead with you guys? A very busy year for you guys, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I always just say, if you want to find out what's going on with the Zebra, go to the website, go to the Facebook pages. It's either zebraband.com or the
I have
door.
thedoor.com, zebraband.com, Instagram, Zebra Rock Band. I'm going to put the website up where we can actually buy the dates. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to take this off the screen, and I'm going to put this right up for the audience. They can actually, to me, it's so easy. It's so easy these days to buy tickets because I have the website here right us for the audience. So all you have to do, and it's so, so simple. I can't stress enough how simple it is. You want to buy tour, and there you go. You got the tour dates. You want to get a notification. You have a bunch of them here. If you're local here in New York like me, Westbury Music Fair is coming up May 17th. The weather's getting nice. Go out there, have a great time here in New Jersey. Cataract PAC. You got Phoenix, Arizona. That's a fun one. City Winery a bunch of different times. Back home in New Orleans, a lot of people are excited about the show at the Beacon on the 29th. So a lot of great dates. You have a VIP show on the 28th in Frederick, Maryland, the Weinberg Center for the Arts. I know that venue very well. So you have a chance to go buy some dates, get the new music, get some merchandise. Definitely, if they could wear it at Cobra Kai, you could wear it there. I mean, how many people ask you now about Cobra Kai? I mean, I for one, really don't care for Cobra Kai. I have to admit. I mean, I was one of the people that, I remember hearing your band's name briefly. I think my dad, who was a drummer, he loved Zebra, and it was, you guys were a trio, and it was always like it was Rush and then Zebra. So it was like, okay, and I was a Rush fan, and I was a King's X fan. You were like the third band, because I'm probably one of the people that falls into the category of the new younger fans, and you were like that third band that kind of fell in line for me, and I purchased the debut album, and it was great. But how many people ask you about Cobra Kai before I let you sign off?
Well, it really made people aware of us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
People were talking about it, aware that we were still around because of the talk online about it, and it's been good. It was kind of a surprise that he had been listening to that record, to get psyched up for his audition for the original movie. That was wow. You never know what your music's going to do.
I know. I mean, I never would have guessed, Zebra and Cobra Kai. I never would have guessed that. I mean, but you know what? It's a blessing, and you just never know. And to this day and age, I think before I let you go, there's a revival for bands like yours. I think about I had Doug on here a couple weeks ago, Doug Pinnick, and King's X just plays with Tool. You guys were on a festival with In Vogue. I mean, I don't think the stigmas are what they were years ago, and people are just looking for music. And I think that good music stands the test of time, and I think that's why Zebra has stood the test of time. I think that's why in 2025 people find good music. It doesn't matter about what you look like, how you talk, what's your background. If you have good music, people are going to find it. And I think that's what Zebra is. And I think that's why we're talking about new music for the first time in a long time. And, what an incredible testament to you guys to just be out there. I think that's what it is to me. People, I was talking with Doug with this. Doug talked about kind of the same thing. I didn't have the big hit, but you know what? I'm here and I'm playing, and I think it's the same with Zebra. I just think good music stands the test of time, and I think that's why you hear what Guy and Felix are going on strong for 50 years. I think you guys are going to live on forever. That's just what I think.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know people are going to love the new album. There's going to be a lot of great. There's a lot of great songs on it.
I can't wait. I am looking for new music. I just picked up the new Dream Theater record. Of course, they famously covered "Take Your Fingers from My Hair," and they opened for you guys when they were Majesty. They were a Long Island band, and just so many great things. I can't wait for it. It's a long time overdue, and anything else you want to say before I let you go? Obviously, we're looking forward to tonight's show that you have coming up here in Northport, and anything else you want to say before I close the show with you?
It's just thanks to all the fans. I mean, like I said before, without them, I don't know if we'd be doing this for 50 years. Or we'd
Oh
be
my
doing
God.
it in the basement somewhere.
Well, you know what? I mean, just an amazing accomplishment. 50 years. You guys, you know what? I'm going to throw it out there. You guys are like the Ric Flair of music. Ric Flair is still out there 50 plus years. Zebra's out there 50 years. No, I'm not going to give you a woo, but that's an amazing thing. And ladies and gentlemen, what an honor it is here. But before we go, this show tonight, 9 o'clock, you're going to hear this before it. If you're actually a few minutes before about showtime, go to LaPorta. They got great food. They got great drinks. Randy's going to be there taking your request, playing some songs. Ava Rush is the opener. So definitely get you can't get your Rush fix. Well, Ava Rush is going to be your opener. So check that out. And they're also working on new music with famed, legendary producer Jack Douglas. I think about Jack Douglas. Like I said, the likes of Ted Templeman and Tom Werman and all those great producers of that era back in the 70s and 80s who made those records that we all still to this day, guys like me and gals like me that go out and love music, definitely still remember. And Jack is certainly one of those people. And my friend, thank you so much for all you do for us. It is an absolute honor to have you, and looking forward to talking some new music with you here in a few months. And thank you for all you do, and congratulations and being in my Hall of Fame. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Tom. Take care.
All right, that was the one and only Mr. Randy Jackson, of course, lead singer and guitarist of the band Zebra, getting ready to go out there for their 50-year anniversary tour. They had some gigs that took place last week, and you'll see him next month in a slew of dates. Go to thedoor.com, zebraband.com. Check them out, Zebra Rock Band on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, X, and also they're working on new music with, of course, the legendary Jack Douglas and their debut album, which you should still buy. Go buy it on Amazon. It's celebrating 42 years. So go out there and check it out. It went gold. It was the fastest selling album at the time in Atlantic Records history for a debut act. And also, they are the longest active American rock band. That's a trio. It's an amazing accomplishment. But we'll see anything else. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally where all music matters, all wrestling matters. Like, subscribe, follow, share this video. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll see you here on Sportswire Radio, the number one global radio station where all music matters, all Zebra matters, and all wrestling matters.